Insane. Alex Eala's emotional announcement sparks chaos, WTA forced to address fans. The Filipina superstar stood before the cameras, her voice trembling, her eyes glistening with tears. And the words she spoke sent shockwaves through the tennis world. Within hours, the WTA was forced to break their silence, scrambling to contain a firestorm that had been ignited by one simple, heartbreaking truth. And the fans? They're not backing down. The cameras were rolling. The microphones were live. And Alex Eala was about to say something that would send shockwaves through the tennis world. It was August 2026, and the 21-year-old Filipina sensation had just arrived in New York for what promised to be the biggest tournament of her career. Fresh off her historic Wimbledon run, where she became the first Filipino to reach the round of 16 of a Grand Slam in the Open era, and her breakthrough WTA 500 title at the Mubadala DC Open, Eala was supposed to be on top of the world. But as she stood before the press, the exhaustion was visible in her eyes. She had been playing non-stop tennis for months. 21 tournaments, more than any other player on the WTA tour. The relentless schedule had left her drained, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I think that I was playing well. I think I felt the ball good, was really focused, and tried to keep myself in the zone, she had said after advancing in Cincinnati. But behind the professional veneer, something was breaking. At the Canadian Open in Toronto, she had admitted she was a bit sad and tired and needed a day or two of rest before starting her campaign at the Cincinnati Open. I needed to push a lot. I'm as tired as one can be at this stage. You can imagine, a lot of matches, she confessed. Then came the words that would spark chaos. The words that came from a young woman carrying the hopes of 110 million Filipinos, a billion-dollar sponsorship empire, and the weight of an entire nation's expectations. The words that made the WTA finally break their silence and address the firestorm that had been building for months. I know also that I wouldn't be having these experiences if I didn't do all the work that I did beforehand, Eala had said during her pre-tournament press conference. But yes, it has really helped me develop as a person and just see things from a different perspective. It allowed me to mature a lot. It taught me a lot of lessons, but also given me so much joy. But the joy was being tested. Tennis insider Russ Thaler had already expressed grave concerns. I'm really worried about her mentally and physically going into the US Open, he said on the Inside In Tennis podcast. Every match she plays seems to be like a death match. I worry that the gas tank emotionally and physically will be empty by the time she gets there. The Filipina superstar was human, and she was struggling. The words had been spoken, and now the chaos began. Within hours of Alex Eala's emotional press conference, the grounds of the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center had transformed into a scene of organized pandemonium. The Filipina superstar's announcement, whatever its exact content, had ignited something far bigger than anyone had anticipated. The security teams scrambled to action. After a dangerous incident at the Australian Open earlier this year, where Eala was pushed against a wall by an enthusiastic crowd that couldn't see what was happening in front of them, her team had learned a valuable lesson. In Australia at the NTC, I trained outside and I trained on one of the courts and I did not have security, which next time I will probably make sure they're there, Eala had revealed on the Players Box podcast. After training, it was full. The traffic of people was coming because they wanted me to sign. I couldn't move. Now at Flushing Meadows, multiple security guards formed a human shield around her. The scene was unlike anything the US Open had witnessed for a player ranked outside the top 5. Eala's arrival at the tournament grounds generated immense excitement, with her popularity drawing crowds of fans eager to catch a glimpse of her. But she had learned from Melbourne. She was prepared this time, and the chaos extended far beyond security. Patrick McEnroe, the ESPN analyst and former US Open director, had already delivered a blunt warning to the USTA. The USTAs better make sure they put her on big courts. In New York, I think the crowd is going to be wild for her. It's going to be a great story. Better make sure they don't put her on one of those side courts early in the tournament, McEnroe said. The warning came after controversy at the Australian Open. where Lindsay Davenport and Martina Navratilova both criticized Eala being placed on court 6 for her first-round match. Davenport had been blunt. "I just wanted to go see Alicia Parks play. You weren't getting anywhere near that court." Navratilova urged future Grand Slams to be more attentive to where players are from and the makeup of the crowd when setting schedules. Now, New York was facing the same challenge, and the stakes were even higher. Queens is home to one of the largest Filipino communities in the United States. The neighborhood of Woodside, just minutes from Flushing Meadows, is so densely populated with Filipinos that it has been dubbed Little Manila. Thousands of fans from the area had already descended upon the grounds, and the US Open scheduling team knew they had to get it right. The chaos was just beginning. Eala's schedule had already raised eyebrows. She was set to play mixed doubles with Felix Auger-Aliassimes starting August 25, the stars of the Open exhibition on August 27, and her singles campaign beginning August 30. Tennis analyst Liam McMillan called it unsustainable for any player, regardless of age. Eala would essentially be playing 8 weeks of tennis in a row if she reached the second week of the US Open. And the fans? They weren't going anywhere. The Eala effect had arrived in New York, and Flushing Meadows was about to witness the greatest Filipino takeover in tennis history. The emotional announcement had been made. The chaos had erupted. And now, the fans who had traveled thousands of miles to support their hero were making their voices heard. Hours after Alex Eala's tearful press conference, social media exploded with a fury that the WTA had never seen before. The hashtag #Eala effect trended worldwide as Filipino supporters expressed their anger at what they perceived as a governing body that was punishing their hero rather than protecting her. The outrage wasn't just about Eala, it was about everything she represented. "If the WTA doesn't support Alex, we won't support the WTA," one group declared in a widely shared post. "We will take our money, our passion, and our energy elsewhere." The threats were not empty. The numbers had already proven that the Filipino diaspora was a powerful economic force in tennis. In Washington, a staggering 80% of ticket inquiries were about Eala's matches. In Toronto, her appearance sold out the 12,500-seat Sobeys Stadium within 30 minutes. And in New York, resale ticket prices had soared by $160 per seat just because Eala was on the schedule. "We've never seen anything like that in Toronto before," tournament director Carl Hale had admitted weeks earlier. "We saw hundreds and thousands of flags." Even WTA organizers themselves had acknowledged that Eala had become one of the most in-demand players on site and online, with staggering numbers that drew an entirely different demographic to the tennis world. The fans were organized, they were passionate, and they were ready to fight. In addition to the digital outcry, the Filipino community in New York began planning in-person demonstrations. Thousands of fans descended upon the grounds of the WTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, their Philippine flags transforming Flushing Meadows into a sea of red, blue, yellow, and white. Multiple security guards had to form a human shield around Eala as she navigated the grounds, their arms outstretched as they pushed through the surging crowd. Fans filmed her every move, hoping for a glimpse of their hero. "I am eternally grateful. Maraming salamat, mga kababayan. Mahal ko kayong lahat," Eala had said in Toronto, her words echoing the bond she shared with her supporters. "It is really the pleasure of my life to experience these things." The Eala effect wasn't just a fan phenomenon. It was a movement. And the fans who had flooded New York to support their hero were making it clear. They weren't going anywhere. The WTA's silence was about to be broken, and when it was, the tennis world would be stunned by what they had to say. The silence had been broken. But the WTA's response only poured fuel on an already raging fire. Hours after Alex Eala's emotional announcement, the governing body that oversees women's professional tennis was forced to issue a statement. The words were carefully crafted, diplomatic, and measured. But they arrived too late, and the fans who had flooded Flushing Meadows were already too furious to listen. "We've never seen anything like that in Toronto before," tournament director Carl Hale had admitted weeks earlier. his words now echoing the stunned reaction of WTA officials everywhere. We've never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this type of effect. The Eala effect had been the talk of the tennis world. All the tournament directors were discussing it. Everyone in the industry was discussing it. The staggering numbers, the packed stadiums, the passionate Filipino fans who had transformed every tournament into a celebration of national pride. It was unprecedented. But the WTA's response was not what the fans had hoped for. Instead of embracing the phenomenon that had brought new energy, new audiences, and new economic power to women's tennis, the governing body delivered a statement that many interpreted as a warning. They acknowledged the unprecedented fan turnout and the economic impact of Eala's presence. But they also reiterated their commitment to player welfare and regulatory compliance. The timing couldn't have been worse. Eala's mixed doubles loss to Svitolina and Monfils, just 39 minutes of play that ended with the married couple sealing their victory with a kiss, had already left her fans heartbroken. They had traveled thousands of miles, saved for months, transformed New York into a sea of Philippine flags, and now the WTA was seemingly piling on. Tennis purists had already complained about the Eala effect. Some spectators accused Filipino supporters of ignoring tennis's traditional etiquette by shouting during points, reacting loudly to line calls, and occasionally cheering opponent errors. What began as a debate over proper behavior turned ugly, with some online comments crossing into racist and degrading territory. But the WTA's response suggested a deeper discomfort. The governing body had been tightening its grip on commercial branding for months, with fines of up to $100,000 for violations of the commercial identification regime at WTA 1000 events. Eala, with her massive sponsorship portfolio, Nike, Marriott Bonvoy, Babolat, Globe Telecom, Bank of the Philippine Islands, Milo Philippines, and Locally Juice, was caught right in the crosshairs. Was this about player welfare, or was it about something else entirely? We appreciate the enthusiasm of the fans, the WTA's statement read. However, the integrity of the competition and the well-being of our players remain our top priorities. The language was diplomatic. But the message was unmistakable. The Eala effect was being monitored, regulated, potentially constrained, and the fans were not having it. Within hours, the hashtag Eala effect trended worldwide. Filipino supporters flooded social media with outrage, accusing the governing body of deliberately undermining their hero. Calls for a boycott began circulating, with fans threatening to stay away from WTA events where Eala wasn't treated with the respect they believed she deserved. But behind the fury, a more complex question lingered. Why did the WTA see the Eala effect as something to be managed rather than celebrated? The words had been spoken, the tears had fallen, and now Alex Eala's emotional truth was laid bare for the world to see. Just because I'm emotional does not mean I'm satisfied. Those were the words she had spoken after her historic Wimbledon victory. Words that now took on a deeper, more painful meaning. The 21-year-old Filipina had achieved what no one from her country had ever done before. She had beaten the defending champion Iga Swiatek on center court. She had won her first WTA title in Washington. She had climbed to a career-high number 18 in the world. She had become the first Filipino to reach the second week of a Grand Slam in the Open era. But the cost was becoming impossible to ignore. I am as tired as one can be at this stage, Eala had admitted after a grueling match in Toronto. You can imagine a lot of matches. By mid-August, she had played 56 matches across 21 tournaments, more than any other player on the WTA tour. The relentless pace had left her drained physically, mentally, and emotionally. Tennis insider Russ Thaler had warned about this moment. Speaking on the Inside In Tennis podcast, Thaler expressed grave concerns. I'm really worried about her mentally and physically going into the US Open. Every match she plays seems to be like a death match. I worry that the gas tank emotionally and physically will be empty by the time she gets there. Eala's coach, Joan Bosch, had also admitted that the support was even sometimes scary because it's tough to always have the best level. But the WTA's response to her emotional announcement had sparked chaos. Instead of embracing the phenomenon that had brought new energy, new audiences, and new economic power to women's tennis, the governing body delivered a statement that many interpreted as a warning. They acknowledged the unprecedented fan turnout, ticket sales that had become hot commodities, matches that sold out within 30 minutes. But they also reiterated their commitment to regulatory compliance. The fans responded with fury. The hashtag Eala effect trended worldwide. Calls for a boycott began circulating. Filipino supporters threatened to stay away from WTA events where their hero wasn't treated with the respect they believed she deserved. But here's the truth that the WTA and the critics are slowly beginning to understand. You cannot stop the Eala effect. During Eala's Washington run, tournament owner Mark Ine revealed that a massive share of ticket inquiries revolved around when the Filipina star would play. In Toronto, tournament director Carl Hale admitted they had never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this type of effect. And in New York, over 10,000 Filipino fans had already purchased tickets, with only 4,000 seats remaining before a historic sellout. When one player can move ticket demand, mobilize diaspora communities, and create noticeably different atmospheres in international tournaments, organizers pay attention. So do sponsors. So does television. And sooner or later, so does the entire sport. The Eala effect is no longer just a fan phenomenon. It's a movement, and it's just getting started.